The world did not end with fireballs or warnings. It ended quietly, the moment help stopped coming. No sirens, no ambulances, no white lights at the end of a hallway. When a bullet tears into flesh now, it is not a medical emergency. It is a countdown. Minutes decide whether you walk away, bleed out, or become a problem your group can no longer afford. If you are reading this, you are already past the stage of hope. What matters next is action. Forget everything you learned from movies, television, or civilian first aid courses designed for safe places and clean floors. This is not about comfort. This is not about perfect outcomes. This is about staying alive long enough to matter tomorrow. A gunshot wound in a collapsed world is not just damage to the body. It is noise, weakness, and visibility. Blood attracts attention. Pain slows movement. Hesitation kills. You are not treating a patient. You are preserving an asset, yourself or someone you cannot replace. The rules change when there is no evacuation plan. Every movement must reduce bleeding, reduce infection risk, and reduce the chance that someone else finishes what the bullet started. There is no heroism here, only efficiency. This guide does not promise survival. Nothing honest ever does. What it gives you is control in chaos, structure under pressure, and decisions grounded in reality, not fear. If you can think clearly while blood is pouring and time is collapsing, you gain an advantage most people never will. And in the end, advantage is the only currency left. Before you touch the wound, you touch your mindset. Panic is not a reaction, it is a failure. The moment you see blood, your brain will try to rush you into motion. That instinct kills more people than bullets do. You do not act fast. You act correct. Speed without judgment is just another way to bleed out sooner. A bullet wound is not defined by the hole you see. It is defined by the damage you cannot. Entry wounds lie. Exit wounds exaggerate. Internal bleeding does not announce itself until it is already winning. Your first task is not treatment. It is assessment. Is the person conscious? Are they breathing without struggle? Is blood pumping, flowing, or seeping? Each answer tells you how much time you actually have. You must understand the difference between a through-and-through wound and a lodged round. A clean pass may look dramatic, but can be survivable. A bullet that stops inside the body is unpredictable, carrying fabric, dirt, and bone fragments deep into tissue. Pain level means nothing. Silence does not mean safety. Someone talking calmly can still be minutes from collapse. Your objective is not to fix the wound. You cannot. Your objective is to prevent rapid death. That means identifying life-threatening bleeding, airway compromise, and signs of shock before anything else. Do not chase the bullet. Do not explore the wound. Curiosity is lethal in this phase. This is where civilian instincts fail. They search for reassurance. You search for threats. Blood loss, infection, and exposure are the enemies now. Everything else is secondary. If you misjudge this moment, no technique later will save you. Get the assessment right, and you buy yourself time. In this world, time is survival. Blood loss is the only problem that can kill you faster than fear. If you fail here, nothing else in this guide matters. You do not negotiate with bleeding. You stop it, or you watch life drain out onto the ground. The body can survive pain, infection, even organ damage for a time. It cannot survive uncontrolled hemorrhage. The first decision is location. Extremity bleeding is your opportunity. Arterial flow is recognizable by rhythm and force, and it demands immediate dominance. Direct pressure is not a suggestion, it is a command. Hard, sustained, and uninterrupted. If you let go to check your work, you reset the clock against yourself. Pressure buys time. Time keeps you alive. A tourniquet is not a last resort. In a collapsed world, it is a calculated trade. You are choosing the possibility of tissue loss over the certainty of death. Applied high and tight above the wound, tightened until bleeding stops, not until it feels uncomfortable. Pain is irrelevant. Survival is not comfortable. Once applied correctly, it stays on until you are in a position of absolute safety and have a reason to remove it. Most people die because they hesitate here. Bleeding from the torso, neck, or groin changes the rules. You cannot tourniquet a chest. You pack and you press. Cloth, bandage, clean fabric if you have it, dirty if you do not. Infection later is preferable to death now. Pack deep, apply pressure, and do not remove what is holding the blood in place. Throughout this process, you control visibility. Blood trails are signals. Noise is a beacon. Work low, work fast, and work silently. Hemorrhage control is not just medical, it is tactical. When the bleeding stops, you have not won. You have earned the right to continue. Once bleeding is controlled, your enemy changes. It becomes slower, quieter, and far more patient. Infection will not kill you in minutes. It will kill you when you think you are safe. In a world without hospitals, this is where most survivors fail, not because they did nothing, but because they did too much or the wrong thing. You are not trying to create a sterile environment. That is a fantasy. Your goal is damage limitation. If the wound is open, exposed tissue is already contaminated. Digging, probing, or flushing aggressively only drives debris deeper and destroys what the body still has working for it. You clean what you can see. You do not hunt for what you cannot. If you have clean water, you use it sparingly and with purpose. A gentle rinse to remove surface dirt, not a flood. Alcohol, iodine, or harsh chemicals are tools, not solutions. Applied incorrectly, they kill healthy tissue and delay healing. Pain again is irrelevant. Function is everything. Covering the wound is about protection, not perfection. You seal it enough to keep dirt out and moisture in, while allowing drainage. A wound that cannot drain becomes a trap. Tight, airtight wraps on dirty wounds create infection factories. Secure, breathable coverage wins long-term survival. Every material you use has a cost. Bandages, cloth, tape, even time. You choose based on movement. If the injured person must travel, the dressing must survive friction and sweat. If you are static, you prioritize observation and access. You check for heat, swelling, smell, and color changes, not constantly, but deliberately. This phase demands restraint. Most people lose discipline here. They fidget, adjust, and interfere. Do not. Once covered, the wound is not a project. It is a liability you manage quietly while staying mobile and alert. A bullet lodged inside the body is a problem that tempts bad decisions. Pain, fear, and old movie logic will push you toward one instinctive thought. Get it out. That instinct has killed more people than the bullet itself. Removal is not treatment. It is surgery. And surgery without control is just another form of trauma. If the bullet is not causing uncontrolled bleeding, not blocking an airway, and not visibly pressing against the skin, you leave it alone. The metal itself is rarely the killer. The damage created on the way in is. A lodged round may be tamponating its own wound, acting as the only thing preventing catastrophic hemorrhage. Pull it out, and you may not have time to stop what follows. There are moments, rare and brutal, where removal becomes unavoidable. When the round is shallow, fully visible, and its position prevents movement, breathing, or function critical to escape, you may be forced to act. This is not bravery. This is desperation. If you reach this point, understand the trade you are making. You are exchanging delayed risk for immediate danger. If removal must happen, speed and preparation matter more than technique. You control bleeding before you begin. You have pressure ready, hands steady, and no second thoughts. Once the bullet moves, blood will follow. You do not search. You do not hesitate. In and out, then immediate pressure, packing if required, and silence. Do not romanticize this moment. There is no clean extraction. There is no relief. There is only damage management under time pressure. Most survivors live because they resisted this urge, not because they mastered it. Knowing when not to act is the real skill here. This decision will stay with you. Make it cold. Make it calculated. And accept the consequences without hesitation. If bleeding was the immediate threat, infection and shock are the delayed executioners. They do not announce themselves loudly. They creep in while you move, while you sleep, while you convince yourself the worst is over. This is where discipline replaces adrenaline. Shock is not always dramatic. Cold skin, pale color, confusion, shallow breathing, a pulse that feels fast but weak. These signs mean the body is losing the fight internally. You counter with warmth, positioning, and stillness. Keep the injured person flat if possible. Elevate the legs only if it does not worsen pain or breathing. Insulate from the ground, and reduce movement. Calories and fluids matter here, but only if the person can swallow safely. Forcing intake creates new problems. Infection shows itself through change, increasing pain instead of decreasing. Heat spreading beyond the wound, swelling that feels tight and angry, a smell that was not there before. Fever is a late sign. By the time you feel it clearly, the clock is already running. Observation is not passive. It is an active task you repeat with intent. Antibiotics, if you have them, are not comfort items. They are strategic assets. You do not waste them on clean-looking wounds out of fear. You deploy them when signs justify the cost. Half courses create stronger enemies inside the body. If you commit, you finish, or you accept the risk you are creating. You must also watch behavior. Irritability, slowed responses, and detachment are warnings, not personality changes. Pain management is limited, but uncontrolled pain drains energy and judgment. Balance is survival. This phase is about patience and vigilance. No heroics, no shortcuts. You stay ahead by noticing what others miss, and acting before decline becomes irreversible. Movement after a gunshot wound is not about comfort. It is about not becoming a stationary target. Stillness can heal, but stillness also attracts danger. You move only when you must, and when you do, every step is calculated. Before movement, you stabilize what you can. Dressing secured, bleeding controlled, pain managed enough to function. Loose bandages fail under sweat and friction. If it will shift, it will fail. Test everything before committing to distance. Once you move, stopping to fix mistakes costs more than fixing them early. You hide the injury, not just from enemies, but from allies who might see you as a liability. Limping, favoring one side, or excessive noise changes how people evaluate you. Adjust pace, posture, and load so weakness is less visible. Survival after collapse is as much social as physical. Energy is currency. You do not sprint unless chased. You do not push through pain without reason. Short, controlled movement with frequent checks beats heroic distance followed by collapse. If terrain allows, you move during low visibility, reduce silhouettes, and avoid leaving blood signs that track you like a trail. If the wounded person cannot move, you make decisions fast. Carrying someone drains multiple people. Staying invites discovery. There is no moral answer here, only situational reality. Hesitation in this moment multiplies risk for everyone. Movement is not recovery. It is exposure. The goal is to reposition to safety, not to prove endurance. When you reach a defensible location, you stop, reassess, and prepare for the next phase. Survival is not one decision. It is a chain. Break it here, and nothing afterward matters. Long-term survival after a gunshot wound is about accepting that things will not return to normal. Healing in a collapsed world is slower, imperfect, and often incomplete. Your job is not restoration, it is adaptation. The body will compensate if you give it time, and do not sabotage it. Daily wound management becomes routine, not obsession. You inspect with purpose, not fear. Redness that stabilizes is different from redness that spreads. Pain that plateaus is different from pain that escalates. You track patterns, not moments. Changing dressings too often reopens damage. Leaving them too long invites decay. Balance is learned, not taught. Mobility decisions define outcomes here. If movement keeps reopening the wound or driving infection, you stop and fortify. If staying increases the chance of discovery, you move despite the cost. There is no universally correct choice, only the least damaging one. Survivors are those who adapt their plans, not those who cling to them. Scarring, weakness, and reduced range of motion are not failures. They are prices paid. You adjust loadouts, routes, and roles. Pride dies quickly in this phase. Those who survive long-term learn to work around damage without advertising it. Mental discipline matters as much as physical care. Fatigue, frustration, and isolation amplify pain and poor decisions. You control routine, sleep when possible, and limit unnecessary stress. Healing accelerates when the nervous system is not constantly on edge. This is where many give up, not because they cannot survive, but because survival no longer looks the way they imagined. Accept the new baseline, protect what still works, and keep going quietly. A gunshot wound in the end of the world is not a story. It is a test. Not of courage, not of toughness, but of discipline. The people who survive are not the ones who panic fastest or act loudest. They are the ones who control bleeding without hesitation, limit infection without obsession, and control themselves when every instinct demands chaos. You have seen the pattern by now. Stop the blood or nothing else matters. Protect the wound, but do not worship it. Move when staying is more dangerous than pain. Stay when movement will finish what the bullet started. Every decision is a trade. Survival is choosing the least fatal option over and over again. There is no clean win here. There is only management. Management of resources, of visibility, of time. The body is not fragile, but it is honest. It will tell you when you are losing if you are willing to observe instead of hope. Hope is passive. Control is active. This knowledge is not for showing off, teaching casually, or proving competence. It is for the moment when you are alone, bleeding, and no one is coming. Used correctly, it keeps you alive without drawing attention. Used carelessly, it gets you noticed and removed from the equation. Remember this above all else. In a collapsed world, survival favors the quiet, the deliberate, and the prepared. Do the work. Make the hard calls. Leave no trace you were ever there.